Good afternoon, and welcome to CJLO 1690 AM. My name is Michael Brody, and I'm joined today by Shane Simmons, and we are here to bring you episode 51 of Cinema Smackdown. Now, as I mentioned last week on our glorious 50th episode, we managed to make it to 50 while skipping 1 week last year because I was so sick there was just no way the show was going to happen. Which means episode 51 this week...
Bubonic plague sucks.
Episode 51 this week is, in fact, our 1-year anniversary show. What? 1 year ago...
And yet it feels like we've been doing this for years.
1 year ago, we reinvented this show to a degree, by which I mean
we usurped power.
Exactly. We took the Cinema Smackdown brand, which up until then had essentially been a game show.
We went from being mere minions and lackeys.
Yeah. And transformed it into the glorious film chat complainy show that has become, where I champion movies that 99% of the population will never see, while openly ridiculing anything starring Joaquin Phoenix.
Except the Sisters Brothers, which I will always throw in your face.
Yeah, but I do live for the day when we get multiple dimensions open and we can go to a parallel Earth and see the exact same movie, instead starring, let's say, 2 John C. Reillys.
Or John C. Reilly and, what's his face? Will Ferrell.
Actually, I'd go with Chris Pratt. I think that would be a good...
No, I'm hoping... I want to see a remake of the Sisters Brothers that is every bit as good as that Holmes and Watson movie.
I mean, there's such a thing as aiming high, and then there's such a thing as having unrealistic expectations. It just can't happen. So, in celebration of our 1-year anniversary, I have posted all 50 episodes of our show, our previous episodes, on a site called Mixcloud. The link to this is on the Cinema Smackdown page. If you go to CJLO 1690 and search the shows, you'll find Cinema Smackdown. On there is a link to Mixcloud. However, you could just go to Mixcloud on your own. But here's the fun part. If you search Cinema Smackdown, you're going to find 3 different shows called Cinema Smackdown, which I found out to my horror. So,
well, that's what happens when you inherit a title.
Not only that, but you won't even find episodes we did because they're too new, and it's all the old stuff that is registering. So, if you do go directly to Mixcloud on your own, look up the name under which I uploaded these, which is Mr. Brody, mr.brodie, and you'll find all 50 episodes in a nice folder, in order, which is nice. Boy, that was a pain. Mixcloud is a wonderful website that takes more than 10 minutes per episode to upload. Just quickly do the math on how long this took me.
Not to steal your thunder, but you can also do the same on YouTube. You will have better luck looking for Cinema Smackdown there, which does show up in the search results. If you want to see the raw footage version of the show, where you get to hear all the inappropriate things we talk about during the commercial breaks.
Well, to bring it back around to movies, I will say that your versions of the show are much like watching cam copies of films online.
Yes.
Where it is like a live microphone in a cinema.
Complete with dead pixels and iffy sound.
I couldn't recommend listening to your copies less. I'm embarrassed that they exist. I'm kind of a little angry they're out there. But I wouldn't want to quash your creative freedom for whatever reason.
Except when the archive breaks and doesn't record our actual show.
Yes, and that is the only case in which I think they should exist. Why you haven't gotten around to taking the good raw versions?
Because when I turn state's evidence against you, I want to be able to point to those commercial breaks and say, he was the mastermind in murdering and hiding the body of the previous host.
Just because on a regular basis, when we bring up really sensitive topics, and I say things like, in defense of the dead, I will not mention those names right now, and then on the breaks I always mention them, that does not give you the right to continue to post these. So I thought it would be a nice idea as an anniversary show to talk through some of the subjects we talked about this year and just see what brings up, what new information comes out that has happened since the last time we brought some of these subjects up. We have a few where I'm like, oh, that guy did this thing since then that's worth mentioning. we'll see if that fills a full hour or 8 minutes. And if that happens, well, we'll go straight into talking about Robert Duvall movies from the 70s. Which we're all good on.
Which we were chatting about just before the show began.
It's the fun part. It's what you wanna talk about not that Robert Duvall's that obscure, but the obscure, more interesting films. There's only so many times I can have a conversation about Taxi Driver and Midnight Cowboy before I want to kill myself. So I'd rather talk about Badge, what is it?
Badge 373.
Badge 373. Not a movie that will be talked to death every time somebody puts a new movie out that vaguely resembles it. Much like these films that are endlessly brought up as the pillars of the cinematic community. The problem with having respected classics is they get talked out.
Yeah, well, believe me, Badge 373 is no respected classic.
Exactly. Well, if we shoot all the way back to our first episode, the one that I have deemed the first one, because it's not like at the time we really knew what we were talking about, I'd say our first episode is the one where we all got together to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the release of Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, well, 50-50-50. It's a theme.
Yeah, but that was the one where I said, this is where I took over the soundboard. We were fully doing our topics. We didn't have a weird trivia game at the end to try to decide who got a chocolate bar.
We all missed the chocolate bars.
Hey, I can always bring them back. We just need more competitors, I think, would be the issue. So there's not a lot of new stuff about George Romero in the last year.
No, I don't know what he's been up to other than, filling a box.
But he certainly inspired multiple things that have taken from his work. The Walking Dead is, of course, a continuing juggernaut abomination.
Which goes to show, this is how you monetize zombies,
yeah.
Which George never figured out how, unfortunately.
It's kind of legendary how not well he did with that property, considering how well he should have done with it. The Walking Dead in the last year has continued to see its ratings plummet, has continued to see the audience disappear week by week for the show. But even with that in mind, there are now 3 Walking Dead shows. 3
now.
That's right. The new one will begin soon.
Oh God!
I'll tell you what the title is, but I don't even remember. It's called A New Beginning or A New World or something, and the show will center upon people who were born into this world and don't know another one. I believe that is the premise.
So people who were born into the world where The Walking Dead was a TV show already and don't know a world without this damn property shoved in their face every 5 minutes.
There are definitely people like that at this point.
Yeah.
At any rate, there's a third show coming, and it's pretty hilarious because, when you look at the numbers, you say, well, this show is not doing great anymore. It was the #1 show on any kind of television for a while, including network TV. It was
but it's still a top performer for AMC. So
yes, but here's the thing that whenever someone complains that The Walking Dead isn't doing well enough to be continuing, they don't understand the real math. The real math is that every minute out there somewhere, someone is spending $1,000 on merchandise.
Yeah.
Probably more than that. It is
because people just cannot get enough of those pop figurines.
Coral! I need my coral!
Would you like the one-eyed version or the two-eyed version?
There you go. So there is an endless amount of merchandise for this, which has made AMC so wealthy that the 3 creators of Walking Dead, the 3 credited creators being Kirkman and his 2 artists, Charlie Adlard and Tony Moore, have collectively sued AMC for their cut of the profits because they weren't giving them nearly enough millions and millions and millions for this. They were already getting millions, but they wanted
Meanwhile, did we mention George Romero died in virtual poverty?
Hey, the man moved from Pittsburgh to Toronto. That is clearly...
It is a step up.
A lateral move. That's a pretty... he's a strange fellow. All right, well...
He is certainly the Tesla of the zombie.
Oh, that's rough. Does that mean in a few years we're going to have an entire series of zombie stuff called Romero? Because that would be funny.
Oh, God, yeah.
It wouldn't be the first time there'd be a character or a building named after him in somebody else's zombie project. I'm pretty sure there's legions of that stuff. But at any rate, So we covered that in our very first show. I thought that one actually went kind of well. We opened with a film clip of the "They're Coming to Get You, Barbara" thing, which wasn't terrible. And boy, whenever we try to do a film clip, it usually backfires horribly. So.
Uh-huh. Well, we did do an entire episode with music clips.
Yeah, we did.
That came off well enough.
And we keep threatening to do another one.
Yeah. And I instantaneously got a notification from YouTube that it had all been demonetized.
Hey, you stole from someone.
Your radio show played music.
Guys.
That never happens.
You can't just play a clip from Waterworld and expect to get away with it.
I'm not sure if the Waterworld clip was one of the ones that got... Because not all of them got called,
right.
But 3 or 4 of them did.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, though. I mean, you played a lot of classic stuff, and I played a little bit more recent, weird pieces. Yeah, you played the Conan the Barbarian score.
Yeah, that's one that'll always get...
And I countered with the clip from Waterworld where they just blatantly rip off the Conan score.
Uh-huh.
Both of which I think are fun pieces. They're a little different, but it's still pretty clear. Like, that's the same drum beat. It's the same building tension.
Mm-hmm.
And
I will say Navajo Joe did not get a copyright strike.
Oh, no. And he's still around.
He is indeed.
Somehow
every time there's a bit of news that crosses my feed about Ennio Morricone, I always expect it to be an obituary.
I mean, he's outlived Sergio Leone by 40 years.
Yeah, true.
That's impressive. I have no idea what their ages were at the time. I don't know if Leone was significantly older. I don't think he was very old when he died.
Yeah, well, Ennio is old as hills now.
Yeah.
And has scored more movies than probably any other composer ever.
And he's probably got 200 films that I've never heard the music for
oh God, yeah.
minor Italian films, and he just keeps pumping them out. But most of the stuff I've caught from him over the years has been pretty great. Even these random, terrible westerns that he just did.
That was always my premise with him, was that so often his music is better than the film it is composed for. Mm-hmm. To the point where I'm sure Tarantino feels the same way, which is why he keeps appropriating tracks from past Ennio Morricone scores.
Yeah, no kidding. Or tiny stings from them.
Yes, well, certainly Election being a great example of a tiny snippet of the Navajo Joe soundtrack being used to show Tracy Flick's rage. Yeah,
it was pretty effective. There's a lot of good stuff in that movie. It's an odd one, Election. I mean, it's such a grim.
But that was actually my introduction to Navajo Joe, because even just that screaming that happens in the soundtrack, it's like, what is this from? And I checked the end credits. It said Navajo Joe, Ennio Morricone. I said, I'm checking that film out immediately.
That's pretty funny. All right, well, we're going to do a quick ad break, and we'll be back with more reminiscing about the past amazing year we've had, all of our successes, and maybe we'll talk through a few of those embarrassing failures.
Are you looking to blow off some mid-semester steam? Montreal's Laser Quest, located downtown at 1226 6th County.
Montreal's Laser Quest.
7 days a week.
I avoid that place like the plague and always have.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that should go out over the air right as we're advertising it. We only have 30 seconds, so just a quick break. Two reasonably short ads. It's funny, that was Allison again, just like a full Allison. And it sounds like Hope, who we were just listening to. Maybe. Just the person.
Could be.
I'm not sure. Now that we know she's madly in love with Shania Twain.
Yeah.
That's not much of a secret.
In an almost stalkerish way.
And we're back on CJL 1690 AM. You are listening to the 1-year anniversary show of Cinema Smackdown. In celebration of this, I have posted all 50, and as of later today it'll be 51, previous episodes of our show on Mixcloud. Mixcloud is a little website you can go to find weird stuff people have posted. And now the weirdest of all, our show, which cannot be found by searching for Cinema Smackdown because, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Two other shows are called Cinema Smackdown. Neither of them have posted in years, but old material from them is sitting there. Therefore, if you search that title, you'll get them and them only, because I guess my stuff's too recent. So if you go to Mixcloud, search Mr. Brody, mr.brodie, and like magic, all 50 episodes will appear before your eyes, and you can look through them and see interesting headlines like Episode 4, which was Spider-Man vs. Rocky. Now, I bring this up
I remember that movie.
because the reason that I was so delighted to do that episode was by creative accounting in my little world, I managed to make it so there were an equal number of theatrical Spider-Man movies and an equal number of Rocky theatrical movies. If you count in the Creeds, if you count in the Spider-Verse film, it all worked out. Now, you disagreed with me because you said that the movie in which Stallone plays a differently named boxer who fights a differently named Jake LaMotta didn't count.
Yes, that one,
And,
yeah.
Oh, does that count? How dare you for even suggesting that's
I
not
disavow.
canon? Yeah, it's... He might as well be screaming Adrian throughout the entire film for how close it is. But my point, though...
He's probably playing Rocky more in that than he is playing Rambo in the most recent Rambo film.
True enough. My point, though, is that there are now 2 more theatrical release Spider-Man movies. So Rocky's got a lot of work to do to catch up.
Well, Stallone can do it.
He could crank out 2 of those. I mean, his most recent Rambo movie was clearly shot in about a day. So I think he can do just about anything.
I will say it was definitely written in a day. And I'm not even kidding about that.
You're way too kind when you say the show was written in a day. It's
It took a whole day to fill out the back of that envelope.
Yeah, that's about how many lines of dialogue there are in that film.
Not to mention thoughts about structure or plot or character.
I'm not the guy from the previous movies. Okay, new fight? Oh, I got my knife. That's how you know I'm a Rambo. I've got the knife. Other than that, nothing.
Well, I appreciated the advancement of character because Rambo did discover barbers.
There's nothing quite like taking away the only part of your wardrobe that identifies you as the character.
Yeah, well, considering that as of the previous Rambo film before this one, they decided that Stallone can no longer take his shirt off because he's such a steroid growth hormone monster now.
Yeah, he's very creepy looking, but he has been for decades.
Yeah, but, I mean, previously, the last we'd seen him shirtless had been Rambo 3, back in the 80s.
No, he's quite shirtless in Rocky Balboa.
Oh, yeah, no, okay, yeah.
That is the film where when he stands up, you go, human bodies don't look like
and they realized that was a mistake, so it's like, if we make another Rambo movie, how about we leave his shirt on?
Yeah, that's very true. But now that I know that it's still a Rambo movie, even if he doesn't have his signature hair, I now realize that every Harrison Ford movie since 2007 has been an Indiana Jones sequel. Well, we just left the hat out. It's still him, though. So his Brendan Fraser research movie about medicine, that's totally an Indiana Jones film. And I'd like to pull another Harrison Ford movie, but I can't think of one.
Yeah,
well, I guess the Star Wars.
The Star Wars, yeah, he's Indian knows. And they're going to make another one, supposedly. It's still slated for, shooting next year or something?
He's so old, it's obscene.
Well, I'm waiting for the story about how Indy loses his eye. Because we all know that happens. That's part of canon, right?
Only acceptable if the actor who played him in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles is still alive.
Yeah. By the time they shoot the next Indiana Jones film, Harrison Ford will be older than that guy was when they were shooting.
Is that a joke?
They're getting close. They're getting really close.
Well, he's almost 80.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, no, he hasn't crossed that line yet.
Into his 70s.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my point. And, Harrison Ford definitely still making Indiana Jones sequels every chance he gets. 6 Days, 7 Nights, Indiana Jones sequel.
Yeah, just think of all those wasted years in between where it's like, I don't want to do those franchise films anymore. I'm going to do great stuff like Firewall.
Oh, that movie is an embarrassment on a number of levels, including, what is the actor? Paul Bettany. Paul Bettany plays the villain.
Mm-hmm.
That is a sub-vision movie, if ever there was one. He is not a great Jarvis in that film.
Yeah, I do maintain Harrison Ford has not made a good movie since the 80s. Literally the 80s.
I genuinely liked Frantic, which is 80s. I genuinely liked the movie. I think it was a bold choice.
I thought there was a lower tier
Coast.
Polanski, yeah.
I also like Mosquito
Yeah,
Coast.
Mosquito Coast is 89, though.
No, it's 86 or something.
No, I think
I promise you.
Okay.
89.
Oh, okay, maybe I'm wrong.
By 89, he was into Last Crusade.
Yeah, and I don't even like Last Crusade, so.
Yeah, neither do I. It's a very rushed feeling movie. It doesn't quite hold together. But it does have some incredible gore. Last Crusade is the one where he shoots 6 German soldiers with one bullet and they explode.
No, they don't explode. They all just topple over. You're misremembering this.
Don't take away the only part of that movie I liked.
It's bloodless, and it's no giant Nazi mechanic being splashed all over a plane.
That's very true. Although there are a few people who get run over by tank tread.
Again, yeah, but utterly bloodless. I mean, it's a very suggestive of a horrific, squishy death, right. But we don't see the aftermath.
Well.
This is not the same Spielberg who gave us Temple of Doom.
No. They were saving it all for that incredibly poor special effects sequence at the end where the villain just takes the word for it that he's drinking from the right magic cup that's...
I love when he turns into a Sam Raimi special effect, into a claymation monster.
At best. It is amazing because if you go back and watch Raiders, the exploding heads at the end of that film...
Oh, they're fantastic. I love those.
They'll never look bad.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is so horrifying, the melting head.
Right.
That it just kind of melted my mind as a child when I saw that scene. I was like, can movies be this awful, this vulgar?
It's when your whole head is melting and you're screaming in your death throes, and it's so wet that you end up gargling your own melted face.
Yeah. Can you imagine Spielberg doing anything that brave now?
Oh God, no.
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 It's just not the same person working.
But at least he doesn't disavow it the way Lucas has. Where it's like, oh, remember the choices I made back then? Yeah, I'm second guessing them all.
Well, I know, but Spielberg has done.
He did it for E.T., but at least he made sure that when that was released on DVD, you had the choice of which cut to watch.
I feel like
as opposed to Lucas, who buried what he did.
I feel like the only reason that happened is because of the backlash against Lucas. He went, oh, I don't want that. So.
Well, fine, Spielberg capable of learning from someone else's mistakes.
Yeah.
Wish George could do the same.
So last year, just to touch on this, we did 4 episodes of this show covering all the overlooked movies of 2018. This year, I mean, I don't know how many episodes we'll do, but I am looking forward to our overlooked episode. We're going to cover stuff we've talked about a little bit on the show.
Pretty much everything we liked was overlooked.
Yes. I didn't like anything that was...
See, I liked a couple of big mainstream ones that'll be on everyone's. Oh, this was the best of the year list, and you're going to hate me for it. But
and it's on a lot of people's hated list. All the stuff you liked.
So you know. Sure.
Just so you know. Now, I always expect everything I like to be on the hated list, and I'm usually right about that happening. But it's pretty interesting, and yeah. I
mean, certainly I've read reviews online of some of the films that I know we really enjoyed, and they're kind of like, well, this isn't as great as all that, and it's like, how can you miss it? This is a forgotten, missed little gem.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
It is irritating that people try to hold these little boutique films up to the same standard as Avengers Endgame. Which, it's like, no, sorry, the little boutique movie is better than Avengers Endgame.
Because it has heart.
Yep.
There's a desire in here to make a statement and make something that will resonate, whereas Avengers Endgame is, it's trying to do a lot of things a little too much, even in a 3-hour running time. It's rushed in places, and it's a merchandise.
But hey, looking forward to the future. I can't wait until next May when we get to see Marvel DC try to make, or Marvel Disney rather, try and make us all care about the Marvel Universe again.
They're releasing about 6 movies in a row with characters that are about half as interesting as the Guardians of the Galaxy were before we saw that film.
Mm-hmm.
But, they have their weird mandate of what they think we want to see and whether we'll pay for. And people paid to see Captain Marvel, so I guess they'll pay to see anything at this point.
Yeah, that's just after that Spider-Man epilogue movie, I feel so done.
Sure, but even look, let's be fair. Iron Man 3 was just an epilogue to the Avengers. But it was a good one.
Yeah, but for us, that was the magic one. Yeah. Which I know a lot of people don't like that one.
For acceptable reasons, but I like a lot of it.
No, well, we like it because it's a proper Shane Black film.
Yeah, which he doesn't make anymore.
It's funny, yes. When he was more of a Shane Black film when he was doing a franchise film like that than his more recent Shane Black film.
Yeah, which is I'd even go two movies in. But at any rate, after we did our overlooked films of last year, which is just a preview of the ones we're going to do this year, and I think we should probably get on those at the beginning of January, because by then we'll have seen most of what would be counted as 2019. Last thought is, I never really like to miss an opportunity to mention the most overlooked movie of 2018 was also the film I thought was the best movie of 2018, which was Nash Edgerton's Gringo.
Yep, and I agree.
Continues to delight me, and also continues to be a film no one has seen.
Yeah, I think I've seen it 3 times at this point, and I've shown it to a bunch of people as well.
Yeah, I've watched it a couple times, and every time I see it, I'm happier with just the little feeling it gives me overall, and people's reactions to it. And I've had people say it was just okay for them, but I feel like those are the people who watched it on a computer screen while doing dishes.
Yeah, probably. But also, it's just another one of those little gem movies that, sure, if you compare it to something that got shot for $100 million with all A-listers, you might feel... You shouldn't feel underwhelmed, but I understand how people do.
No, Gringo is like a great 70s comedy thriller.
You can tell it's, Charlize Theron is in it. Oh, is she driving a giant truck in a post-apocalypse? Well, no. No, she's playing a cutthroat executive.
Hey, not every movie can be as headache-inducing as that masterpiece. So after we did that show, we did it. I can't believe we did this in 2 parts. As I look back on the list, we did 2 entire episodes delving into the career of M. Night Shyamalan. And I'll tell you this now, I wouldn't do it again. He is persona non grata with me as of this point. Once he released what must be arguably my least favorite film I've ever seen. Certainly in the realm of a big budget, ish, Hollywood release movie, it is probably the film that upset me the most I've ever seen in terms of 0 good ideas, horrid performances, and just a plot that meandered to the worst ending.
Well, we all know you're not a fan of Rosie O'Donnell nun comedies. Oh, wait, it's not that one you're talking about.
That movie, which I've seen, is 1,000 times better than Glass. It's better shot, it's better reasoned, meaning that when you go, what should I tell a story about? Well, it probably shouldn't be murdering your most beloved characters in the most offhanded, disinterested way imaginable, which is Glass. Complete with disguising using abuse as a positive energy concept. It on every level fails me as a story.
I will acknowledge that he has every right to crap on his own universe.
And he did.
Unlike what we've seen with certain other filmmakers who I dare not even invoke their names, who have shown up and taken the reins of certain franchises and obliterated them.
Right. And
we're going to see the final affront in another week and a half at this point, I guess.
Oh, are you a big fan of the Playmobil series?
Yeah. I mean, when I read the screenplay was by Ryan Johnson, I thought, oh my God, he's going to butcher Playmobil now.
I'll remind the listeners you're listening to CGLO 1690 AM. This is Cinema Smackdown. We're celebrating our 1-year anniversary, our 51st episode, which, because we skipped a week last year, means it's our 52nd week of doing this stuff. And, however that works. It's my creative math, if nothing else.
Well,
we also have about 150 shows that precede it.
Yeah,
they are
that's
in the same vein. So this is the new numbering, baby. We're gonna.
Well, yeah, like so many Hollywood films, this is a selective sequel. We're a sequel to some of the previous episodes, but not all of the episodes.
There we go. That works for me. We did a weird war films episode, which I was quite pleased with last year. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do indeed. Largely inspired by the release of Overlord.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, which was a movie I really enjoyed, despite being a colossal mess. It's very much a 5 different movies crushed into a ball and thrown against a wall until they just ran down that wall, all liquidy.
Yeah, well, it does a good job of playing its hand at being a brutal D-Day war film up to a point, and then the weird science stuff gets into it. It turns into an outright, balls to the walls horror movie.
Yeah, Frankenstein's monster on methamphetamines or whatever.
Yeah,
It's kind of crazy, and the special effects in that movie is so filled with CGI that when you see the monster moments look shockingly realistic, you say, did they build that? Is that a real animatronic creature in the room? Because it looks great, and I just watched a terrible CGI shootout scene where it looked like everybody was standing in front of a green screen. So it kind of bounces back and forth between things that look amazing and things that look wrong.
Yeah, well, that can be effective sometimes. I mean, Peter Jackson did a good job of mixing styles of special effects for the Lord of the Rings movies. So if you look at one style of special effect too long, you will begin to see the seams. Yeah. If it bounces back and forth, sometimes between shots, it can be more effective at fooling you.
Yeah, and that's it. And Overlord is one of those movies where you can tell somebody really wanted that movie to be great. I don't think it is, but I still like it.
It tries really hard.
It tries really, really hard. It does within about a minute or two push the realm of believability when you see who the commanding officer is. You're kind of what year is this again?
Yeah. There's certain allowances for the racial mix of
I'm all good with
troops in World War II that just didn't happen.
But it's science fiction.
I'm a history buff, so right from the start going, this situation is already tremendously fiction. But I did appreciate it's like, it's still a gritty war movie with people being killed horrifically in a post-Saving Private Ryan sort of way, although this is about paratroopers who drop behind the lines in the early morning hours of D-Day.
So Shane, you checked in with me a couple of weeks ago to see if a topic for the show would work, and I said, I feel like we did that one.
Oh, yes.
And as I looked through it,
we did indeed.
We literally have an episode called Kick-Ass Genre Women.
Yeah, my take on it was, a slight variation of that, but yes, it would be too redundant to do that, but...
Was there anyone in particular you want to mention?
Well, this is partly the development since then that inspired me to want to revisit this, because,
but this
of course,
is your chance.
Yeah. We had the notorious, incredible flop that was the latest Charlie's Angels movie, where
let's be fair, you and I haven't seen this movie.
No, we haven't, and I won't say it's good or bad based on that basis, but...
You paused there. You said, I won't... And I thought you were just going to stop.
Well...
I still plan to see it someday. I want to see what was done. I'm curious.
Yeah, it's purely morbid curiosity on my part. But my interest in revisiting this had a lot to do with Elizabeth Banks complaining, as we hear repeatedly, just people don't want to accept female-led action movies, or you can't launch a female...
Due to the movie not having any box
Yeah, you can't launch a female-led action series, to which I said, Elizabeth Banks, you starred among the rest of the cast in all 4 of the Hunger Games movies. What are you talking about? And we have talked in the past on the show about the embarrassment of riches when it comes to female-led action movies. I don't remember if I mentioned it at the time.
Still the majority, obviously, but there's some.
I probably did, because it's one of my favorite little bits of historic trivia. But if you want female-led action movies, they've only been around since the dawn of feature film in 1916. Mm-hmm. If you see Intolerance, all the Babylonian sequences that feature one of the great kick-ass female lead action heroes you'll ever see.
Well, you know how our audience is always clamoring for more.
Oh, I know.
1916 movies.
Yes, everyone here, big fan of silent cinema. I know, but
Exactly.
I could barely convince anyone to watch a black and white film these days. Making them watch silent films is it's a bit of an uphill battle. But to claim that this has always been, if only, I've come to realize it's just the people who complain about that, among many other topics that they complain about in modern cinema, are just people who have no sense of history or have never seen a movie from before they were teenagers.
Right. Yeah. No, I've had conversations with people who have literally never seen a film from before they were 10.
Mm-hmm.
Because why would they? They don't understand that world. Why does that person's phone have to be plugged into a wall?
Or why would I want to look into the cinema of other countries?
Yeah.
You know, why would I want to investigate the female convict Scorpion series or the Lady Snowblood series or Azume or
Those are such happy movies.
They are indeed.
You just pick the happiest.
They're brutal, but they are certainly female-led action series.
And they are gorgeous movies.
Oh yeah.
I don't love them all, but boy, I can turn the sound off and stare at the photography in those films. They're all so pretty.
Yeah, the Japanese really have always had this sense of perfection. It's a striving for perfection in their craft on every level.
It is amazing considering the limitations at the time.
And given how exploitational the female convict Scorpion movies are in particular, you're amazed watching this. Why does this look so good? This is trash cinema, and yet the shots are inventive, and the content is occasionally surreal in bizarre, interesting ways.
Yeah, it's better filmed than anything that came out in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
There is nothing that I can hold up to this. I mean, it's not even something I care about. I totally dismiss the female convict Scorpion movies, but nothing looks half as good as these films do. They're shot on film,
Yeah.
and they're beautifully choreographed and framed, and every nuance, you're like, well, this is mesmerizing. New stuff is just like, well, they're going to be watching it on their phones anyway. We also did a number of spotlights last year on Just Creators, which we haven't done too many of lately because, let's be fair, it's a bit hack to just talk about someone's filmography. But we did 3 weeks in a row of this, which I did not remember. So we did 3 weeks in a row. We touched on S. Craig Zoller, David Twohy, and Tim Burton. Another person I'm astonished we did a Tim Burton episode. Like, boy, does that not need to be talked about. The other two, at least, are a little more obscure, a little harder for the general public to know everything. No one realizes.
I know you really, really want to talk about Dumbo. So.
Oh, that is why we brought it up, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
at the time, none of us had seen Dumbo, but it had come out, and it just seemed like the right moment to bring it up.
Hey, remember when Tim Burton was good?
I have now seen Dumbo, and while I will not say it's a good movie by itself, it is his best film in a while. It is there were a lot of things in this movie people complained about that I was quite taken with, in the sense of, well, if you're gonna tell this story, at least if you're gonna add a whole lot of other details in, because this is a massive expansion on the original film. The biggest complaint I heard about the movie, and sometimes I do find this exact concept like a bit of a pandering move, but they added 2 children to this story. The protagonists are 2 kids who are caught up in a circus fiasco that is Dumbo, and the real protagonist of the story is I want to say 10-year-old girl who is written real smart, and I was really pleased with her character, but I read direct reviews that said this is what's wrong with modern cinema, and all I could think was, so what are we arguing about? There's not enough smart women in film, or it's pandering to put one in? Like, what version do you want? And what I really like about
to that criticism, I will say I will join the chorus of people saying perhaps we've seen enough of 90-pound girls beating up a room full of Navy SEALs.
Right. Well, in this case, it's not Mila Jovovich or Alicia Vikander. Is that saying her name right? The new Tomb Raider.
Her.
Who is the tiniest woman I have ever seen. So seeing her fight people is not working for me. But
But she really kicked Poe Dameron's ass when she was a robot.
oh yeah, that works for me. Yeah, but that was super justified. The Dumbo movie, the young woman is the reason that she's interesting is because she has decided that when she grows up, she's going to be a scientist, and therefore everything she does in the entire movie is based around scientific curiosity. And I was taken with that. It was a good idea to throw a character like that in because there's only so much you can really do with a CGI mute elephant. So you better add something to it. At any rate, I didn't hate the Dumbo movie like I really thought I would. And that's not a glowing recommendation. It's just okay. But considering how bad the last dozen Tim Burton movies have been, I was pleasantly surprised, you know.
Well, as far as our other spotlight goes, I will not apologize at all for doing an entire episode about S. Craig Zoller.
No, he needs more and more and more.
Everyone needs to know who this guy is.
Yeah. And I am still quietly making my way through his novels. I am...
Yeah, I've recently finished Mean Business on North Ganson Street, which is the hardest boiled book I have ever read in my life.
Yep. My review of that book was, this is it. This is the harshest, most engaging novel I've ever read. I mean, I'm reasonably well-read, especially crime fiction-wise, and this is my number one book of that type of noir. It is a rough book.
Yeah, it is for people who didn't think Dashiell Hammett was cynical enough.
That's right. But, I mean, it is Zoller's book, Mean Business on
North Ganson Street.
Jeez, I can never get that.
Yeah, it's a rough one to remember, yeah.
But it is... I couldn't recommend a novel more highly to somebody who is a fan of crime stuff. Really hard-boiled, really involved. It was the most satisfying novel I've ever read, period. That I liked every paragraph, every turn of phrase, There is also so much good dialogue crammed into that rather short book that I think there's 3 great movies worth of back and forth in the dialogue in this novel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's never happened before. I've literally never read a book with that much material that I was in love with. So, tiny throwaway lines from random characters are gold. So you can pretty much just open this book at random, find a place where there's open parentheses, and just start reading, and you'll read a great line. Anyway, I might be overselling it. It's one of those rare cases where I won't apologize. I am not overselling this book. It is a wonderful novel. But, of course, we're here to talk about his films. S. Craig Zoller, just to remind the listener, is the director of Bone Tomahawk, Brawl in Cell Block 99, and Dragged Across Concrete, all of which are masterpieces.
Yep.
All different.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more the sensibility that is a common uniting thread of all his work.
Yep.
To the point where his next film was supposed to be a children's film, and already it sounds like it's going to be the darkest children's film you've ever seen.
Yep. We'll see what happens. I hope he gets his funding, his budget, and that they let him make his movie. He
seems to be on a roll now. It seems after bouncing around with selling screenplays that never ultimately got made because no one has the balls to. Now that he has the backing of enough big names who know, hey, this guy's got the goods, I will be in his film for a discount price. A la Kurt Russell.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll be back in a moment after a couple of words from some shows and products I've never heard of. Ooh, that took a moment to get going. Clicked the button and it just hovered. Oh, I picked well.
What the hell is this?
Oh, I accidentally played both commercials earlier, so now it's the 2 show promos I chose. Usually I mix them up.
Yeah.
So this is the random thing. It's called Multiple Tabs. It's an electronic show.
First of all, why go anywhere? Right.
Oh, these are so strange. I picked 2 in a row, apparently, that were just, basically the new season of Twin Peaks.
Anyone speaking backwards?
It felt that way. And we are back after what might be the weirdest ad break we've ever done. 2 commercials in a row that sounded like they were made for the most recent season of Twin Peaks, of which there was approximately 18 hours, of which I think there's about 6 minutes of watchable footage. And I'm being very kind when I say that. Once I saw the Twin Peaks... I saw 1 episode of the new series of Twin Peaks, and I was like, oh, so you've had a stroke. And somehow people are still rallying around you, David Lynch. It was the laziest, lowest form of David Lynch copycattery I've ever seen. Shot on a $2 budget. It looks terrible. And I watched all the episodes out of this morbid curiosity of seeing if the ridiculous amount of Kyle MacLachlan that was in this show would ever finally transform into Agent Cooper, because he is not playing Agent Cooper in the show.
Right.
And it is a hell ride, meaning that I was angry for the entire 18 hours, all the way to the end. A lot of people out there were okay with it, and then you start seeing these best of lists where they're like, Twin Peaks Season 2, greatest show ever made. And you just say... So did you watch it?
Twin Peaks is
experience
one
it?
of the greatest examples of diminishing returns.
Right.
Because the 2-hour pilot of the original show was fantastic. Everyone was hooked. And then the first season did not end the story. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, fine. We thought it was going to end, but okay. We're in it for the long run. It ended that story in the mid-second season and then went off onto a different story that didn't conclude. And then there was the movie, which really lost me, The Fire Walk With Me, which I did not care for.
It's just an experimental art film. But in comparison to the new series, it's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And it's creatively gorgeous.
By the time they came up with the new series, even as an longtime fan, I just couldn't muster the interest to watch it.
You gotta watch any 1 minute of the show to just understand.
Oh, no, I've...
deep down the rabbit hole. You've seen the Shia LaBeouf scene, haven't you?
Not Shia, but dressed up as Shia LaBeouf
That's
from...
Right. It's Michael Cera.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes, I watched that scene, and it was uncomfortably horrible. To the point where it's like, well, that was fascinating to watch, but 18 hours of this crap? No way.
And that's a highlight.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know. That moment is a highlight. There is a ridiculous amount of people standing around not knowing what to do.
Yeah,
that he kept.
So, the comparison is that Michael Cera and Shia LaBeouf from the last Indiana Jones film were both dressed up in costumes invoking the memory of Marlon Brando in The Wild One.
Or, Al Pacino in Cruising. It's a little closer to what I'd say. At any rate, we touched on all those filmmakers. We did some episodes on them. David Twohy, of course, is a highlight. He has a very odd but interesting career as, for a long time, a screenwriter.
Again, more people should know of him.
Yeah, he was just a screenwriter for a long time, and then he delved into weird movies. He started directing, and then he stumbled onto a franchise somehow with the
Riddick films,
the Vin Diesel Riddick movies, which are definitely diminishing returns.
It's unfortunately he spent so much time on that because I like all his other films better.
Well, he's a really interesting voice when he's trying
and
fresh product.
We have multiple times highly recommended A Perfect Getaway as the highlight of his career.
It is
a film worth watching. If it's worth watching once, then you should watch it twice.
Yep. Great, very entertaining movie, fantastic performances, and a great Alfred Hitchcock kind of plot, taken a little further than Hitchcock normally would anyway. So I just love that movie.
And then we also decided to talk about Neil Marshall just in time for his least popular film ever.
I think we talked about him before it came out too.
Did we? Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember if we'd seen it yet, but yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe we did, because it's a bad movie.
Yeah, it's. I'm not as. I don't have as much bile for it as many people do, because this film is really despised.
Hellboy, the new Hellboy movie, which originally was called
the Hellboy reboot
Queen, but is now called Hellboy, because why have different titles?
and a reboot for no real reason, because with a little bit of rewriting, it could have just been another one in that series.
Yes, but the previous movie ended on a cliffhanger that needed to be answered, and they just blew that off, which is so irritating.
Mm-hmm.
the third planned Ron Perlman, Guillermo del Toro movie fizzled out eventually. And we were unfortunately gifted with Sheriff Hopper playing a version of Hellboy who, honestly, the only alteration to him is we pushed his hairline forward because people don't really like the fact that he has a receding hairline. That ought to give us more box office. It's not a joke. And my argument for that Neil Marshall movie is it is so ineptly edited that shots don't match and structurally the film doesn't work, which leads me to believe I am praying it was taken out of his hands and recut without his permission, because I've seen his other movies and they're pretty, and this movie is not. It feels broken and rushed, and so I don't consider it to be his mistake. I figure somebody else did this, and it's just one of those movies where a movie changed, but they're not talking about
This is the problem when you play with other people's toys.
Yep.
This is a property that someone else owns, and ultimately he would not have final say in this. I don't know what happened either, but obviously he is much better when he is working on his own original material, particularly something like The Descent.
Yep.
And not The Descent 2, which he had nothing to do with, or little to do with.
True,
he didn't direct it, but okay.
But he did actually approve a lot of that stuff.
Well, yeah, because someone wrote a check.
Yep, and he's the first person to say that. Thanks for the money, I guess.
Yeah.
Too bad this makes my first movie look a little bad, but alright, just pretend it never happened. It undoes everything that's good about that first film in 10 minutes. They bring back to life a character who is murdered as a matter of course of being one of the most important plot points of the first film. They just bring someone back. It's
that's what so many horror movie sequels do.
Agent Smith stepped onto the screen in The Matrix Reloaded with a cursory moment of, I know the entire original movie was based around eradicating me, and when that happened it was one of the most satisfying moments cinematically in history, but we've all decided that as an actor I'm just too good to leave out of this film, so I'm back. The end. Yeah, that was the first sin of the second Matrix movie.
And then they realized as of Avengers Endgame, I was like, you know what? We can just we can bring his characters back without that actor just fine.
Yep, that's true. That's a inside baseball comment if ever there was
one. True. But hey, if we want to see Sheriff Hopper again in a big red suit, we've got next May, Black Widow.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
He's basically playing Captain Russia.
That guy, something's gonna happen with him at some point, and he will cease to exist as a celebrity. I don't know when, I don't know what, but I'm calling it now, live on the air. He rubs me a little weird in that way of, that guy you went to college with, you never really liked, who later you found out went to prison. He's that guy. There's something about his interview persona that makes me think he's got...
Or his awards ceremony acceptance speeches persona as well.
It's something about it. He's got dead people in a trunk somewhere.
I think he's the one who slipped Winona Ryder that roofie she was on during the award show where she was looking at invisible flies or whatever the hell was going on there.
I am unaware of this.
You missed that one.
I did miss that one.
Yeah, Winona Ryder attended, was it the Emmys, I guess? She seemed very altered. Mm-hmm. To the point where it's like, what are you on exactly?
All right then.
I blame him for slipping it to her.
I don't consider the Emmys to be a thing. I just don't. When people it's Emmy award winning.
I don't think either of us consider Stranger Things to be a thing.
No, not certainly not at this
I was
point.
done after season 1. You were done after what, season 2?
I was done after episode 1, but because it was a cultural phenomenon, I watched all of season 1, decided not to watch season 2, and then got roped into watching season 2, which, even as a hater of the show, I felt betrayed by season 2, which is really saying something. So yeah, I gave up. I actually managed to find the strength to let go of that show I hate. It's just, it continues to be a juggernaut. It's a bit rough. It's too popular.
Well, I keep hearing a lot of people just increasingly disappointed with it the farther along it goes. So.
Good. Well, I hope it eventually becomes the final season of Game of Thrones for people, where the biggest, strongest fans of Game of Thrones are now talking about it like the entire series is the final episode of Lost. Which is so hilarious. These cultural phenomenons that feel untouchable in the public eye. Lost was one of those shows for about 2 years. Game of Thrones was for, 7 seasons?
Yeah, about that.
Nobody had
6, certainly.
one negative thing to say about Game of Thrones until... Well, I'd say the last season, but honestly...
The second to last season was when the negativity...
The second to last season is still pretty good, and then...
Except for all the teleportation that happens.
Yep. That kind of improved it for me, though. I love anything that you can pick stuff apart like that. But wow, that turn in that final season of Game of Thrones where it's like the entire world just went, I'm just going to pretend this didn't happen. And I love the petitions. You got to reshoot that season.
Yeah, well,
that'll
pan out.
Has to come out of the shower, and the man from Atlantis has to be.
Yeah,
there,
that'll
so
pan out every bit as much as the petitions to get Disney to disavow the current trilogy from Star Wars history.
That works for me.
Oh yeah, no, I'd love to.
Hey, look, Disney is currently revisiting the period of Star Wars right after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And they're, as far as I'm concerned, telling a better story than Return of the Jedi tried to. So, that's a step up for me.
My official prediction is we will never, ever see anything that takes place in the Star Wars universe much past the Mandalorian period.
Right.
They
Golden Era.
They will never revisit the New Order period.
Yeah. Well, we were doing a kind of a look back at our last year, and we only got through about 20 of the episodes. Just randomly. I chose them pretty randomly, but we had some great guests on. We had Monica last year.
Yep, our highest rated show on YouTube, at least.
Ooh.
Because we talked about
What's
sex.
her family name before I
Hamburg.
Thank you. Who does a show called Pornomedy. Never a bad idea to give her a little
Yep.
shout out. She does live shows, and she's a lot of fun. Check out Monica Hamburg whenever she's doing something in Montreal. We had a few different guests on talking about movies they loved or hated. We talked about cult leader movies.
We had our radio station boss on, who didn't fire us.
We had an episode where we chatted about the strange career of David Fincher, and I really did want to bring up the fact that I just learned David Fincher did an exhaustive episode of the podcast, the WTF podcast with Mark Maron, in which they spoke for 2.5 hours, which is 2.5 times the length of a regular WTF episode, at which point David Fincher stopped the recording, told Maron he had to think about it, went home, phoned him the next day and said it wasn't enough, and never returned to complete the episode. At any rate, we're running out of time.
2.5 hours is about 2.5 hours longer than I'd want to spend in a room with Mark Maron, but okay.
I just think that's perfect for Fincher. I've been Michael Brody. I've been joined by Shane Simmons. We have been enjoying chatting about the last year of
For
our
a whole
show.
damn year now.
Yeah. We are Cinema Smackdown. We are 51 episodes strong. We'll be back next week with episode 52. And we appreciate you listening this far. Our episodes are on Mixcloud. Look us up. We'll talk to you next week. Bye for now. All right. Hey, our guy's not here. Or if he is, he's being very polite.
No, well, I think we're probably the only people who did like a weekly show all year and only missed one episode.
Probably the only one. It's just not taken that seriously in a lot of cases, and there are constant references on the what do you call it? On the I get a update now and then. Constant references to, hey, the weather's bad. You don't have to come in and do your show this week. To like everyone.
They send that message out. They invite people to not come in because the weather's bad. You know?
She's like, or it's a study week, or it's a holiday week. Like, the radio station is effectively closing next week till January 10th or something.